You're listening to Susan Graham Ryan on ABC North Queensland.
Are you someone who is the life of the party? Or can you chit-chat to anyone about absolutely anything? Does that sound like you? Communications trainer Wendy Demonari from Work Ready NQ told me small talk can be really tricky, and for some, they want to be nearly anywhere else. Here is what she had to say.
A lot of people seem to be quite comfortable talking about technical things, but when it comes to having those small talk, chit-chat conversations, that can be really tricky for some people. I'm going to tell you a little story. I lived in France for 11 years. I was teaching English. I had an English communications training business over there. And I was working with multinational companies, and a lot of the people I was working with, they were like, managers, directors, engineers, scientists, IT, tech people. And I went along and we had a bit of a discussion before we started the training. And they said, look, what we really want is small talk conversation lessons. And I said, oh, right, okay. For them, they said, this is the most important thing at work. And when we're in conferences, when we're at social functions, we're not necessarily talking about a machine or something technical. We just need to talk about, the weather or something like that. So, yeah, so that's what we did.
Why is small talk so important then?
I think it's important because, some people do think it's perhaps pointless and superficial, but in fact, I think it's extremely important in sort of laying down the foundation for more deeper and more meaningful and more authentic conversations to come. So I think it has a very important place to play in organisations, in business.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of an icebreaker. What are some tips when we're getting into small talk territory?
Okay, right. Okay, well, these are the do's, and then we'll talk about the don'ts later. Okay, so look, I think just as a matter of courtesy, let's put the mobile devices to one side. Just put your phone away and try to give people your undivided attention. I know that is very hard to do. Yes.
Controversial, Wendy. What's the next tip?
Sorry. Okay. I think, look, don't, just ask, banal sort of open-ended questions. Not those questions that start with a do or are you, because they are closed answer questions. So if you can ask sort of what, where, why, how type of questions, and that keeps the focus more on the other person and less on yourself.
Yes, I like the idea that interested is interesting.
Yes, it certainly is.
And the old favourite, talking about the weather, I guess, is always a good one to go to.
That's always a good one, yeah. Also, just, listen actively. And as I said, if the attention is being directed more at the other person and less on yourself, then, you can't help but listen. You're listening to what the people are saying. Try to make direct eye contact, like I'm doing now, and smile. Those little, yeah, okay. Those sort of little cues that indicate that that person is with you and they're following the conversation. Okay, so what are we going to talk about? What can you talk about? Small talk conversations. Okay, yeah, you mentioned the weather.
Yes.
Do you do that?
I think, the weather's always a good one, especially if you're with the person, or even if you're on a video call with somebody in another part. Oh, what's the weather like where you are?
Yeah.
It's an easy one. It's a safe one.
It's a safe one. I know, people say, oh, it's so cliche, but look, it is a safe one. It's an easy one to start with. And particularly if you've been experiencing some, out of the ordinary type of weather, like we've had, some rather hot days here, or, we're leading into the cyclone season. So that's what you can talk about. Weekend plans and upcoming holiday plans, especially at this time of the year.
Yes. And what are you doing this weekend? What did you do at the weekend?
Yes.
What about the don'ts? That's probably what we really need to get into.
All right, let's talk about that. Okay. So I think particularly at this time of the year. We're leading up to Christmas. We've got a lot of Christmas parties, a lot of functions, and in a lot of these places there is alcohol. So I think that adds in another layer where we need to be a little bit careful about our communications. You know, at this time of the year, a lot of people are probably feeling quite tired, quite stressed, maybe a little bit burnt out, dealing with a lot of workplace pressures, add a little bit of alcohol into the mix and a bit of high excitement of the season, and, you know, it could be a little bit of a recipe for a problem. I think it's, you know, you should avoid gossiping, avoid rumour mongering, avoid spreading rumours, not complaining, try not to be a bore. The old saying, don't talk about politics, religion and sex, I think that still holds true unless you know the people very, very well.
Yes.
It is, they are tricky areas and they could be very sensitive areas as well. If you are with people you don't know, then I would advise just, you know, being a bit careful about your language, not swearing, being careful about telling any sort of off jokes, being careful a little bit about paying compliments to people because, you know, it's a fine line and you can sort of drift over into a bit of an unprofessional grey area.
Yes. Sometimes when we are at some of these functions, you might have been chatting with somebody for a little while, but you might be ready to move on to chatting with the next person. How do you finish a conversation?
Okay, well, of course, nobody likes to just, you know, say, all right, got to go now, that's enough, even though you might feel like it. And I'll talk to you about a little strategy I have. So I think, you know, if the conversation has been, you know, quite pleasant and, you know, you've got a lot out of it, but you don't want to hog them and you do have other people you need to speak to, just simply thank them for their time, perhaps for their patience. You might like to mention something interesting that they said to you. So that's another, you know, sign that, yeah, you know, that you have been listening to what they've said. If you find, you know, you're talking to someone and you really feel like you can't get away and you feel like they are hogging you, then I suggest having what I call an exit strategy buddy, if you can, in the room. It might even be someone that you organise to call, or someone gives you a sign from across the room and so you can say, oh, look, I'm really sorry. It has been so great to talk to you, but I do have to go and catch up with this other person and hopefully we'll catch up again soon. So thank you.
Yes. Be courteous. So don't just yawn and then say, that's enough, bye.
No, that tends not to go down too well.
No, of course not. Give us some final thoughts. Let's give a bit of a summary. So if somebody's going to a Christmas party this week, what are your final tips for small talk?
Okay, so let's not forget, if we are going to a work function, that, you know, it is a work function. So we need to keep at the back of our minds to be a little bit professional, to be a little bit careful of what we're saying. Try to keep an open mind, take the attention away from yourself, keep asking questions of others. Don't, be like an interrogation, but ask those questions, listen to what other people have to say, go in expecting to learn something and to have fun. Expect it to be a positive experience and not think, I'm going to mess this up, I'm going to make a fool of myself. Focus on other people and not yourself. And I just think also, just bear in mind at this time of the year, it is for some an exciting time. For many of us, we are running around, we're rushing. For others, it can be a very difficult and challenging time of the year. So I think it pays to pay particular attention at this time of the year to our communication skills.
Communication trainer Wendy Deminari there from Work Ready Queensland. Hopefully some of those tips help you.